Hello, this is Coach Tim Campbell, and I'm your host for the Self-Made as a Myth, Make a Difference Together show, where we're talking with successful business owners to hear their stories of the journey to building their business. And because we know that success in business is not something that we can do on our own, we're taking some time out to recognize and acknowledge the folks who have helped us along the way. Today, I'm excited to have a fellow business owner from Indiana with us. My guest took 4 years off between undergrad and his law degree to work and travel around Europe. We're going to have him tell us a little bit more about that. Sounds exciting. He enjoys skiing with his family and just got back from a ski trip unscathed, which is always a good thing. And he is most proud of his children. It is my pleasure to welcome Hamish to the show today. Hello, Hamish.
Hey, Tim, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Fantastic. Well, hey, let's start with having you tell us a little bit of your personal story. So introduce yourself, tell us where you were born, where you live, and about your family and some of your hobbies.
Perfect. Thank you. Yes. So I'm Hamish Cohen. I'm a business owner. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm an attorney, which is usually the last thing I tell people. I was born in Edinburgh, Scotland. I emigrated here when I was 7 years old. Lived mostly in Indiana since then. So I'm a Hoosier, even though I still can't really define what that is, other than the circular definition that it's someone from Indiana. I went to high school on the northwest side here, Pike High School, and then I took a year off, went back to Scotland. I took an undergraduate degree here, and then spent 4 years off, which you mentioned, and which was great for me. I think part of the entrepreneurial spirit is a sense of adventure, and I spent 4 years kind of working and adventuring, and I worked in a youth hostel, and I worked on a cattle ranch, and I traveled all over Europe, and it was a terrific experience. I'm married. I have 4 children. We're kind of like the Brady Bunch. I have 2 boys and 2 girls, and the girls are my stepdaughters, and they're as you mentioned, they're probably what I'm most proud of. I think parenting is also like entrepreneurship. It's also an adventure where you can't do it alone, and you're often learning on the fly. And I think what we try to do as parents is raise kids that are ultimately better people than we are, which I realize is a very subjective measure. But my kids are really they're nice, they're kind, they're thoughtful people, and I don't know if I'm any of those things on any given day. So I'm really proud of them.
Fantastic. Well, our kids are a reflection of ourselves, so that is a reflection of you and your wife. So congratulations.
Well, thank you. They're definitely a reflection of my best days, not my worst days. So.
Now, most people who tell me that they traveled Europe took a summer off to do it, and you took 4 years. So what was the thought process there? That's amazing.
Well, there really wasn't one. I got out of undergrad, and I wanted to go back to Europe. I spent quite a bit of time there, and I was born there. And I walked into a youth hostel that was hiring in Edinburgh, Scotland, and the guy working there was a guy I knew, a guy I used to drink illegally with when I was 16 years old. And he said, "You've got the job," and I just ended up staying for the best part of 4 years. And what brought me back was law school. I got a scholarship to law school in Indiana, and that kind of brought that in a friend's wedding. I came back to being a friend's wedding and never left again. So it was sort of an organic thing, and it just happened to take 4 years.
Now, illegal drinking in Scotland, that sounds like an oxymoron to me.
Yeah, that is actually, technically the drinking age there is 18, although back when I was 16, if you had 3 pounds and you were tall enough to look over the bar counter, they would serve you. I think they take it a little more seriously now, but back then it was not, let's just say it was not strictly enforced.
Right.
Not strictly enforced.
Hamish, what's a funny story that your family likes to tell about you that you'd be willing to share with us today?
So that was, you sent me that question beforehand, which I maybe shouldn't admit. And that was the one I had trouble with. My family's very British, so they don't really tell funny stories. It's not exactly a strength. I think the one I would mention is because it's one that's hard. I don't love it. Is my stepdaughter always tells everyone that I remind her of the grandfather from the Meet the Robinsons, the animated movie. He's the guy who wears, he's kind of bald, he got the big hair, and he wears his clothes backwards, and he's a sweet and goofy character. And so, yeah, that apparently that is the movie character to which I'm most relatable, which as opposed to any Tom Cruise action movie hero.
Right.
I'm the grandfather from Meet the Robinsons, so that I'm learning to live with that.
There you go. It could be a lot worse. So I would take
It could always be worse. That's a true story. Yeah,
Tell us how the business came about, and at what point did you have the confidence that you could run your own business?
So it took a while. My partners and I'm lucky in that I've got 3 partners, and I would never admit this to them, but they're fantastic people. And one of the things we're talking about are the people that help you and bring you along. And I think of that a lot of times in the out of the organization sense, but it's also an intra-organizational sense. So I have these 3 great partners, and we started talking about it. We started our business 8 years ago, but we probably started really talking about it 10 years ago. And it took us a couple years. It started as a dream. I think a lot of businesses do. It started as this concept and this dream and something we really believed in. And it took us a couple years of putting together a business plan and really thinking about it and kind of working through the pros and cons before we were ready to jump. And I think what really did it is kind of putting together the business plan and realizing that we had something. There was a there. And if we were brave enough and diligent enough and we worked hard enough and lucky, because there's always that element of luck too, we could jump and really make this work. But it definitely took a while.
Tell us a little bit more about the company. What do you guys do? How do you help folks?
So we have 3 companies, really, 2 of which I'll talk about 2 of them today. One of them is our law firm, which is Mattingly Burke Cohen Biederman LLP. And that is sort of a business boutique law firm, which is not particularly interesting. There's nothing interesting about a law firm. The other company that's kind of our entrepreneurial company is called Proteus Discovery Group. And it's a legal tech company. And it works in the eDiscovery world. And what eDiscovery is where businesses, usually it can be a person, get in litigation, or there's a government investigation, or there's due diligence in a big transaction. There's a tremendous amount of data that needs to be gathered and gathered in a forensically sound manner, stored in a safe manner, deduped, analyzed, reviewed, and then in some cases produced. And that's what we do. We do that entire process. So we identify where the data is. We talk to the custodians and figure out where relevant or interesting information is. And sometimes it's accessible and sometimes it's not particularly accessible. We gather it in a forensically sound way. We organize it in a way that makes it usable. For example, we thread email families together. And then using both lawyers, technologists, and technology, we review, process, and boil that information down to what is useful. And sometimes you start with tens of millions of documents, and at the end, what you're interested in is 10,000 or 1,000, or maybe it's just 100 documents that are going to be exhibits at trial. And we are that funnel. We run that entire process.
I've got to imagine that this saves people thousands of hours.
It does. When we first started doing this as lawyers, not as technologists or business owners, it was an incredibly inefficient process. I mean, when I first started, I'm old enough. A lot of it was in hard copy. You'd go to some freezing warehouse outside of Chicago and spend hours looking through, asbestos coated boxes of documents trying to find something that was relevant or important. Now it's all done electronically, and the technology itself, if by managing the process and the technology, you can very quickly focus in on what matters, and that saves an incredible amount of time and money. And when we realized we could do that, we realized ultimately we had a better product than what was in the market at a much better price. We were very much a disruptor when we started, even though what we're doing now is becoming more the norm, but we were out in front of it, and it's been a fun process.
Fantastic. And in our last call, you mentioned that you developed it for your own benefit first, and then went to monetizing it and offering it as a service to others. Is that correct?
That's right. So we did it. So we also have a process management software we've built, which has been terrific. And we did that for ourselves, and then we're taking it to the market as well. So, and I mean, ultimately, the Proteus model was something that we learned ourselves as lawyers, and we implemented first on the law firm side, and then we realized we really had the tail wagging the dog. The dog was Proteus, and if we invested in it, I mean, money, but the real investment is often time and energy, and, blood, sweat, and tears. Proteus really could be the entrepreneur vessel. It could be the company that would grow.
Very cool.
So far so good.
Yeah, fantastic. Hamish, share a story where someone pushed you or inspired you that you could do it, even though maybe you weren't sure if you could, and the impact that person had.
So I'll share a couple quickly. So the first one would be my partners, and as I mentioned earlier, I think the people that inspire us and move us exist both inside and outside of an organization. And I'm a lawyer, so I spend a lot of my time as a lawyer dealing with risk mitigation. That's what good business lawyers do. We help our clients mitigate risk, among other things, but that's one of the important tasks we do. And I had a good job at a great law firm. I was a partner at the biggest law firm in the state of Indiana, which was a secure position doing interesting work. And one of my partners in particular, Sean Burke, really believed in this. And so did Ray and so did John, but he really believed in this model. And he was just, I think in a phrase, relentlessly positive. Relentlessly positive about it, and I just think that was really important for me. Part of being an entrepreneur is taking risk, and my partners were willing to take those risks and do it together. And so having that person, and then outside, just people like Mike Kelly at Developer Town. I just, when we first started this business, he was one of the first people I met, and I kind of met him and Mike Cloran and all of these entrepreneurs that they kind of host and work with and deal with. And I just realized that there was this vibrant entrepreneurial community in Indianapolis, in the Midwest, in the United States, of all these folk who were doing incredibly exciting things and doing in some ways together. We think of, I think, capitalism as being very competitive, but entrepreneurship isn't. I think entrepreneurship is in many ways a shared journey, and I think entrepreneurs have so much they can share with each other. And Mike Kelly was the person who kind of introduced me to that concept very early on, which really inspired me and helped us in the beginning of our business.
Fantastic. Mike is a great guy. I know him personally, and had the opportunity to share a meal with them. He's just a great, awesome guy who wants to make a difference in others' lives. So happy to hear that you've had the opportunity to work with him. That's awesome.
Yeah, I've been very, very lucky there. He's one of the most generous people. I don't know anyone who has less time, but is also more generous with their time than Mike Kelly. I don't know how he does it. I think maybe there's actually 3 Mike Kellys, and at any given time you're dealing with one of them, because it's, I couldn't do it. I don't have that energy, but anyway.
Hamish, what's your biggest learning as a business owner?
So that's a good question. I think the biggest lesson for me is that it is a constant growth process. Like when we first started the business, we identified the things that we thought were going to really take off, and we identified what we thought were going to be the problems, and we got many of them wrong. Many of the issues that we've dealt with or we've had to deal with as we've grown were things we didn't even think about. And conversely, there were many of our successes were things that we didn't think about and didn't know about, and were not things that we counted on when we first put together our business plan. It is a iterative process. You are constantly learning on the fly, and I think I knew that in my heart of hearts, but I don't think I appreciated the extent to which that is true.
Yeah, I've heard this phrase before about failure, and that our founder, I love his quote. He says that he's never failed. He either succeeds or he learns. And I like that idea I've heard it also be called learn forward, right?
Yeah, learn forward. I like that. Yeah, no, we've definitely had quite a few learning opportunities. So yeah, and we've learned from them, which is part of the joy of entrepreneurship, is that you get to learn and grow, which is incredibly exciting. You're not doing the same thing every day.
Yeah.
It's always lots of learning opportunities.
You mentioned your business partners with being that persistent, and I think that's another quality that
Yeah.
is needed to have a successful business, is to to be persistent through those challenges or those learning opportunities, and have the faith and the courage that, hey, we're gonna keep pushing forward because we know, we believe our vision, and these road bumps and blocks are not going to stop us from achieving what we know is possible.
No, you're exactly right. There's you have to be a little dogged. And that when you first start the business, and for us, we got a line of credit. And I signed that personal guarantee. It's you know you realize very quickly that you have to be persistent, and you have to push forward.
Hamish, we know that business success doesn't happen in isolation. So tell us about your biggest challenge during the years as a business owner, and maybe a fellow business owner who came alongside you and helped you to get through that.
So I think the biggest challenge are the human challenges. I think the hardest thing I've ever had to do is terminate an employee. It's just because we're human, and you appreciate, even if that person isn't working, they're the wrong person in the wrong seat. They don't necessarily share your organization's core values. Maybe they're disruptive, or whatever the case is. And even when you've done all the right things, you've tried to mentor them, you've talked to them, you've put them on a personal improvement plan, and it just isn't working. It's still something terrible, and I hate it. And I think the people that have kind of helped us through that. I mentioned Mike Kelly and Mike Horn at Developer Town. There's Tony, who introduced us to each other, who I think is a great guy, and just an incredibly dedicated and person. People like Hector Escobar, who's a local business guy who's very successful. Chasen Damon, who runs Ship Sigma. I mean, I think what they all have in common is this sort of fearlessness and bravery. And I think just being around these folk helps, and realizing that you're not the first person to go through this. Everyone has a situation where they have the wrong person in the wrong seat, and that's okay. And that ultimately you're hurting that person, you're hurting yourself, and you're hurting the business where you don't make the difficult decisions. And being around people like the folks I mentioned, who are, I mean, they have great core values. They're good people. They're kind. They're smart. They're hardworking, and they're willing to make the difficult decisions when they need to. I think those people really inspire me, and they've seeing them do those things has been really good for me and really good for our business.
I'm glad to hear that you were able to get that support and be able, because it is right. It's we get an emotional attachment to our work family, and it's hard to part ways. There's another phrase that it can be helpful in these types of situations. It's hire slow and fire fast, right? So the hire slow is
Yeah,
make
yeah,
sure that we know that they're the right cultural fit,
yeah,
right? That they're gonna fit into our DNA and our values and our beliefs, because that's the most important thing. We can teach skills, but we
yeah.
can't teach cultural fit. And then the fire fast is, as soon as you know that that you've made a wrong decision, you're not doing yourself a benefit, right? And you're not, you're doing a disservice to your employee as well by trying to figure out how to make it work. So I've had people who have been let go, come back later and say, "Hey, Tim, you actually did me a favor because I found something that was the right
Yeah,
fit
better
for
fit.
me." And yeah,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah, that's great, Tim. I wish I'd heard that before, but yeah, you're exactly right. The analogy someone gave me once is, every now and then you've got to rip the Band-Aid off.
yes.
You just got to rip the Band-Aid off. And I like that. That's a great phrase. I wish we'd talked. I wish we'd talked about 7 years ago. That would have been
Right.
yeah.
Hamish, if I asked you to pick, I'm going to kind of put you on the spot here. If I asked you to pick three people in your business owner journey that you're most grateful for, them being there to contribute to your business's growth, who are those three people and how'd they help you?
Well, I don't know if I can only pick three. That's tough. So obviously the Mikes at Developer Town, Mike Kelly and Mike Cloran. So I'll put them in one bucket. And I kind of mentioned what they did before, but they're just they're incredibly entrepreneurial. They're very, very brave, and they're kind and generous. They really believe in a community, and I always see them committing to that community and building that community and sharing their time with people. It's funny. There's nothing I don't think that they'll work and share with people. As a lawyer, like sometimes they'll refer people to me with an agreement that they've given the person, and invariably I'm like, yes, this is pretty good. I wrote it. And but I'm glad that they're doing that. I'm glad that they're sharing their time and expertise. The second bucket would be my partners, and we think about people who inspire us as being outside of the organization, but one piece of advice I would give to entrepreneurs is look for really good business partners. I think the word partnership is undervalued. Real partners look after each other. I still have lunch with my partners 2 or 3 days a week, and we talk shop. I mean, it's a de facto business meeting. We deal with the issues of the day, and then we talk about our families, and we make fun of each other, and we bemoan Indiana University basketball, and we do all of the things that are human and enjoyable. And we are a family, which makes the good better because you've got someone to share it with, and when it's bad and it's difficult, you've got people pulling on the oars with you. And then Tony, you introduced us. I haven't known Tony for that long, but just incredibly impressed by him. And what really amazes me about him again is that sense of community. This idea that, hey, you're doing X, Y, and Z. I know these people who are struggling either with similar issues, who have dealt with this before, or who have skills that can help you with this, and making that introduction like that. No thought about it, just introducing you to other people that can help you along your journey, because it's difficult. Running a business requires a myriad of skills. You're constantly dealing with new issues or things that are beyond your bailiwick. I'm a lawyer. I'm good at the legal side. I'm our company's general counsel, but I'm not an HR specialist. I'm not always good with people. I'm a bit of an introvert. It's I don't have the skill set that covers all of the things that we deal with in a business, and having these people that have those skills and are willing to make those connections is just incredibly important.
For those listening, it's Tony Salzo with.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I should have said that.
No worries.
Yeah, Tony's a remarkable person, so I really enjoyed getting to know him.
And again, background: Tony is the one who launched and created Rainmakers here in Indianapolis. He's since moved on and has a new business and helps entrepreneurs. So just a little shout out. We both know Tony. He's a great friend, and appreciate the work that he does with us as well. Hamish, as we think about Hamish, sorry, as we think about the next 3 to 5 years, what are the biggest challenges that you'll face that in terms of getting to your goals as you look to grow your business, and who are the types of people that you'll need in your business or outside of your business helping you to solve those challenges?
Sure. So our challenge now, and we've had we've grown and we've done well, and we've obviously proven our concept repeatedly in the marketplace. So our challenge now is growth, is strategically growing the business in a way that is true and consistent with our core values. And those are core values from a business. We provide quality. We call ourselves the anti-vendor, in that we do all the things a vendor does, but we also are very relationship driven. We really care about our clients. And I think that the trickiest thing there, and we've tried to be very deliberate about this, is very specifically identifying what our seats are as we grow. Where do we need people, and what are their roles going to be, and defining those, and then, to you said, very slowly and deliberately finding the right people for those seats. And that's been a process for us. And I think when we first started hiring people, we were not deliberate. So I think the challenge for us is strategic growth. We're trying to grow as a business. and that's difficult. It's difficult because it requires bringing in more people and more clients. And so, as to the clients, we've got to find them. We believe, I think correctly, that we've got a better widget. We've got a great product at a great price, and we provide in that legal tech sphere a tremendous product at a incredibly competitive price. But it's not always easy to sell that because people are not always don't always understand what they're buying when they buy legal technological services. And so the messaging around that is something we've always worked on. We're lawyers, we're not marketers, and so yeah, back to the point, you don't have the entire skill set. So we've got a head of marketing now who's a great guy, who's doing a great job, but building that out is very foreign to me. I'm not a natural marketer. And then filling the other seats with the right people, doing it, like you said, slowly and deliberately is going to be really, really important. And I think one of the key things for us is doing so in a way that is true to our core values. We've spent a lot of time over 8 years as a successful business figuring out who we are. I actually have a sheet here now with our Proteus core values on it that one of my partners printed out and gave to me in case I forget what our core values are.
Great, yes.
And, yeah, I know, right? We deliver, we commit, we're sincere, and we're adaptable. So there you go.
Fantastic. Yes,
I know, right? But finding folk that are true to that and maintaining that our quality as we grow is going to be incredibly important to us. And doing that requires us finding really good people and putting them in the right seat and continuing to maintain the relationships we have in the business community with the people who inspire us.
I love that your partner printed that out. One of the things that we do as a company and we coach our clients on is to, in our Monday team huddles, I actually read out one of our core values, and then we go around and everybody shares where they feel like they're doing well and where they can improve. And that way,
that's great.
We keep it live, right? We keep it real. And we hold each other accountable to the fact that we're actually living it out. It's not just this thing that's printed on the wall and we all forget about.
Yeah. That's fantastic, Tim. I love that. Yeah, we try to do the same thing. We have a weekly meeting, and one of the things that we really emphasize systematically are those core values and why they matter and what they actually mean to us, and how they mean to us internally, and what they mean to us as we interface with our clients. So, because that's critically important. Yeah, and that's something that I've been taught too by these people who've inspired me.
Yeah, and the more we do that on a regular basis, it becomes a whole lot easier to discern potential hires. Right? Do they fit our culture or not? Because we now know what it is. We live with it every week. And even writing that into a job ad, people will self-select out. They're like, hey, that's not the type of culture I want to be part of, so I'm not going to apply for that job.
That's exactly right, and that's exactly the sort of thing that I had no idea about. The people we've mentioned have said to me, I mean, you're exactly, and that's why this matters. Right? I'd never written a job description before I started this business. I'd never hired anybody. Not really. I'd sat in job interviews, but
sure,
these are the sort of things that people know. And I know everything that you want to know about corporate governance and corporate structure and board meetings and stuff like that. But this stuff I didn't know about, and having people who could kind of like, hey, well, have you thought about your core values? Have you thought about how that should be expressed and how that affects the people you hire? I mean, my initial answer was, well, no, not really. Yeah, if we're being honest.
Right. So, yeah. Well, it's a big shift, right? When we work for a corporation, there's somebody else that does all that stuff for us, and the person just shows up for the interview, and right, we ask them some questions.
And then you fill out the form that HR gave you, and you give them a 4 out of 5 or whatever it is, and then you don't think about it again.
Yeah, right.
Exactly right.
Last question here. Jim Rohn said that we become the average of the 5 people that we spend the most time with. So as you think about that quote, what advice do you have for business owners who are trying to do it on their own, who don't think that they need other people's help and that they can sort through it all and figure it out by themselves?
So my advice is that is a myth. There are no entirely self-made business owners, which doesn't diminish the experience or the process at all. It is running a business is an incredibly challenging and complex thing. And if you can do it successfully, I think you're accomplishing something very special. But it's not something that you do on your own. And I think I would say that for a number of reasons. Number one, it's a lot more fun with other people. I mean, I'm a very relationship-driven person. I think you have more fun when you share the experience, even if you're a sole proprietorship. If you have people you can share the experience with. Number two, no one is an expert at everything. I routinely have business people come to me who are brilliant. They are brilliant at business. They have an incredible idea. Their implementation of it is fantastic. But their corporate governance is a mess because they're not lawyers and they don't know how to set up and actually run a business from a legal standpoint. And that's what I can do. So that's one of my perspectives. But we're all like that. None of us know everything. And then the third point I would make is many of the things we face are subjective. Many of the decisions that I've had to make as a business owner, there is no right or wrong answer. There's no formula that I can plug the data in and get, oh, here's the obvious answer. Having smart, thoughtful, kind, experienced people that you can bounce those issues off and get their perspective improves your decision making exponentially. It just does. And so most of the decisions I make are subjective decisions. Having good folk that I can share those issues with just improves my decision making so much for so many reasons. So it's, we are all hardworking, we're all independent folk, and so on and so forth, and that's important. But at the end of the day, I think the entrepreneurial journey is a shared journey. It just has to be.
Awesome advice. Thank you for sharing that. Sounds like you've been blessed with some incredible people who have helped you along the journey. Hamish, if they were all on the show here today, what would you want to say to them?
I'd say thank you. I'd say thank you for your advice. Thank you for your kindness. Thank you for your support. And thank you for making this a lot more fun. I mean, life is short. It's not always easy, but it really has been a great ride, and I'm just so grateful. I'm really grateful for those folk that they've been a part of it.
Hamish, it's been a pleasure speaking with you today. Thank you so much for being on the show.
You too, Tim. Thanks for having me, mate. I really appreciate it.
To everyone who tuned in, thanks for listening to the Self-Made is a Myth show with your host, Coach Tim Campsell. Be sure to help spread the movement by liking the show and posting about it on your social media. And to join our movement, go to bemadtogether.com. All right, folks, that's a wrap. Make sure to pay it forward, and I'll see you all next time. Take care.